Welcome back to Zenith Lifestyle. Just going to quickly go over some risk factors for cardiovascular disease. So from the World Heart Federation, looking at modifiable risk factors. So these are risk factors that you can reduce due to behavior. So cardiovascular risk factors. Number 1, physical inactivity. The World Health Organization believes more than 60% of the global population is not sufficiently active. Studies show that doing more than 150 minutes, which is 2 hours and 30 minutes of moderate physical activity every week, or an hour of vigorous physical activity every day, will reduce your risk for coronary heart disease by about 30%. Physical activity and diabetes. If you develop diabetes, you're at greater risk of developing cardiovascular disease. Physical activity is known to reduce the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. One study showed that walking at least 2 hours a week reduced the incidence of premature death from cardiovascular disease by about 50%. In people with diabetes, exercise is thought to improve blood glucose control, which reduces the negative impact of diabetes on vascular health. Tobacco. Since 1940s, it is known that smoking is linked to heart disease and cancer. Smoking promotes cardiovascular disease through a number of mechanisms. It damages the endothelium lining of the blood vessels, increases fatty deposits in the arteries, increases clotting, raises LDL cholesterol, reduces high density lipoprotein, and promotes coronary artery spasm. Diet and cardiovascular disease. The role of diet is crucial in the development and prevention of cardiovascular disease. Diet is one of the key things you can change that will impact all other cardio risk factors. A diet high in saturated fat increases the risk of heart disease and stroke. It is estimated to cause about 31% of coronary heart disease and 11% of stroke worldwide. Comparison between a diet low in saturated fat with plenty of fresh fruit and vegetables and the typical diet of someone living in the high-income countries show that in the former there's a 73% reduction in the risk of a new major cardiac event. Research makes it clear that abnormal blood lipid fat levels have a strong correlation with the risk of coronary artery disease, heart attack, and coronary death. A diet high in saturated fat, example cheese and trans fat, often used in cakes, cookies, and fast food, leads to high levels of cholesterol. Saturated fats are found in animal products. Trans fats and oils have been hydrogenated to turn them into semi-hard fats. These are found in processed food like shop-bought cakes, biscuits, stock cubes, and a range of other products you buy. Saturated fat and trans fat raise cholesterol levels in the blood, which can in turn lead to atherosclerosis. Unsaturated fats, polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats, are beneficial for heart health. They are present in fish, nuts, seeds, and vegetables. They have the essential fatty acid omega-3 and omega-6 found in fish, nuts, and seeds. Our body cannot make these acids, so we have to eat them to gain their benefits, which improves good cholesterol levels in the body. Sodium. High blood pressure, hypertension is a major risk factor for cardiovascular disease. If you have a high sodium diet, your risk for hypertension goes up. It is estimated a universal reduction in sodium of about 1 gram of sodium a day, about 3 grams of salt, would lead to a 50% reduction in the number of people needing treatment for hypertension. The same decrease would lead to a 22% drop in the number of deaths resulting from stroke, and 16% fall in the number of deaths from coronary heart disease. Fruits and vegetables. Eating a diet high in fresh fruits and vegetables protects your heart. Low fruit and vegetable intake accounts for about 20% of cardiovascular disease worldwide. Fruit and vegetables contain components to protect against heart disease and stroke. Whole grain cereals. Whole grains are unrefined and do not have the bran or germ removed. They contain folic acid, B vitamins, and fiber, all of which are important protectors against heart disease. Processed grains like that used to make white bread and pasta do not have the same benefits. In countries where fish consumption is high, there is a reduced risk from all causes as well as cardiovascular disease and mortality. Although on a personal note, I wouldn't recommend fish due to the high radiation, mercury levels and BPA plastics found in them. Another modifiable risk factor is alcohol. Harmful uses of alcohol have been shown to damage heart muscle and increase the risk of stroke and cardiac arrhythmia. Consuming too much alcohol can cause other problems such as increased blood pressure, acute myocardial infarction, cardiomyopathy, cirrhosis of the liver, violence and suicide. Bad fats. Much of the food we eat contains saturated fat and trans fat. They raise the blood cholesterol level, which may potentially clog up the arteries, putting one at greater risk of heart disease. Everyday foods like meat and dairy products can have high levels of bad fats, so it's often difficult to know what to put in the shopping basket. Clearly, don't put any of those in the shopping basket. Just get fresh fruits and vegetables. Blood lipids. Fats as a risk factor for cardiovascular disease. Abnormal levels of lipid fats in the blood are a risk factor for cardiovascular disease. Cholesterol, a soft waxy substance found among the lipids in the bloodstream and all the body cells, it is important to the healthy functioning of the body. It is needed to form cell membranes and hormones. The human body makes cholesterol, and we also consume it when we eat animals and animal-derived food like milk and cheese. We can also make cholesterol from foods that do not contain cholesterol, such as coconut fat, palm oil and trans fat, often used in foods such as French fries, cakes and cookies. Hypertension is the level of high or raised blood pressure for which investigation and treatment has been shown to do more good than harm. Hypertension is defined as a systolic blood pressure level of 140 above. This is a risk factor for coronary heart disease and the single most important risk factor for stroke. It causes about 50% of ischemic strokes and increases the risk of hemorrhage stroke. Raised blood pressure in someone less than 50 years old is associated with an increased cardiovascular risk. Dietary salt is a significant factor in raising blood pressure in people with hypertension and in some people with normal blood pressure. If you are already overweight, then a high intake of salt increases your risk of cardiovascular disease. Obesity and cardiovascular disease. If you are overweight, you may develop hypertension, diabetes and atherosclerosis. These conditions will put you at high risk of cardiovascular disease. So what can you do? Well, by adopting a whole food, plant-based diet, you can reverse, cure and even prevent these diseases such as cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes and obesity. All of these chronic diseases are food-borne diseases. You don't have to suffer from these diseases. You can just take on a whole food plant-based diet and become the healthy you at the correct weight and live a long, happy, healthful, active life. So don't forget, if you don't look after your health now, it won't look after you later.